You'd think I'd be finished with this story by now, the story of my simple tourist visa extension. I ended up turning that small task into a 4-part video series. But now I have part 5, though technically this isn't about the visa extension. I'm only relating it to the visa extension because when I went to immigration, I had to give them a phone number, my phone number for my smartphone, my SIM card phone number. And it occurs to me right now that the phone number that I gave immigration isn't even valid anymore, and that's because my IMEI expired. This whole IMEI business is pretty complicated, and I don't really know the truth of it. I don't know what the real policy is, because everything I hear, everything I see online, people talking about it, what officials are telling me, everything is different. So I don't think I can really explain what IMEI is all about, and this new policy in Indonesia of having to register your IMEI with customs. Exactly how it works, I don't know. But all I can tell is what happened to me. And what happened with me, to start from the beginning, of course, I came to Sumatra. I've got a smartphone. I went to a Telkomsel office and I got a tourist SIM installed in my phone. It was a fairly complicated procedure. It took a long time to get it done. And as part of that procedure, they called up the IMEI number on my phone, and then they registered that number with Indonesian customs. And I'd heard of IMEI before. I wasn't aware of it for years and years, but then on a previous trip to Sumatra, one of my smartphones was stolen. And then when I went to the police department to report the theft, they asked for my IMEI. And I'd never heard of IMEI. I had no idea what it was. So that was the first time I'd ever encountered the term. And IMEI stands for International Mobile Equipment Identity. And it is essentially a number, a very long number, similar to a serial number, except like a serial number is sort of engraved on the device, it's like physically written on things. That's your serial number. But IMEI is digitally encoded in the device. So the IMEI identifies this physical phone. And Indonesia came up with this new system where you have to register the IMEI of every phone that comes into the country. And my understanding of this whole IMEI business is that it's to prevent you from importing phones without paying customs and duty. So if you buy a phone outside of Indonesia and bring it into the country, technically you're not paying duty and taxes in Indonesia, right? So then you could sell the phone in Indonesia. But they want to prevent you from doing that. So when you buy a phone outside of Indonesia now and then you bring it into Indonesia, the IMEI of this phone has to be registered with customs. And that means they can track this phone. The wrinkle is that the IMEI registration only lasts for 90 days. Now, I didn't know any of this. This is all new information to me. All I knew was that when I came into Indonesia this time, Telkomsel called up the IMEI of this phone and registered it online with customs. And they told me that's what they were doing. But then, while I was in the middle of extending my tourist visa for another 30 days, my phone stopped working. I mean, I could connect to Wi-Fi in a hotel, but I could no longer use my SIM card to connect to a mobile network. It just stopped working. And I let it go for a few days because I kept thinking, oh, maybe there's just some weird glitch, or maybe I'm out of range of the receptors, the mobile towers, whatever they are. And I kept waiting and waiting for it to work again, but it would never work. And every time I turned on the phone, I got a message at the top that said, SIM 1 is disallowed. So I took that information, started doing a bit of research, and I eventually concluded that there must be a problem with the IMEI registration. So then, after I finally got my passport back and I got my visa extension, I went to Telkomsel. And I couldn't go there before because while they were processing my visa extension, immigration kept my passport. And I knew if I went to Telkomsel to do something with my SIM card, they're gonna ask to see my passport. And I didn't have my passport. So I had to wait until immigration was finished, gave me the visa extension, they gave me my passport, and then I went to Telkomsel. And the first day I went there, I couldn't get anything done because they were too busy. The office was jammed, and they were gonna be busy all day, and they said, well, it'd probably be better for you to come back on another day. So I waited till the next day, went back to Telkomsel, and told them my story, and the woman took my phone, took my SIM card details, went onto her computer, did a bunch of investigating, and she turned to me when she was done and said, your IMEI registration has expired. It's only valid for 90 days. And as soon as your 90 days are up, the phone essentially gets switched off. The weird thing is that the SIM is still valid. The SIM that I have is valid until May or June, something like that. So I still have months of validity left on my SIM card. I had data on my SIM card. I could actually call up my SIM card through the Telkomsel app, and I could see all the information. I could see the expiry date, which wasn't until May or June, as I said. I had mobile data, tons, like gigabytes of data that I could use. I had credit left on my account. Everything as far as the SIM card was concerned still looked good, but I was not allowed to connect to the internet, to a mobile network using that SIM card anymore because the phone itself had been denied access. So the SIM card technically was still okay. The phone itself was the problem because the IMEI registration had reached 90 days and it had expired, and customs in combination with Telkomsel basically had turned my phone off. It was no longer allowed to connect to a mobile network. That's what she told me. Now, when I was doing all of my research online, before I went to Telkomsel, I saw a lot of sites and a lot of people saying that, the IMEI registration was valid for 90 days, but you could extend that for another 90 days. And so I thought, okay, let's see if I can do that. That was the first thing I wanted to try. So I said to the woman at Telkomsel, who were amazing, by the way. They were all women, all women, the clerks at Telkomsel. They all spoke English. The ones that I spoke to spoke English very well and incredibly helpful, very friendly, so I have no complaints at all. They were really good at the Telkomsel office. And I asked her, okay, my IMEI has expired because my 90 days are up, but I heard that I can extend it for another 90 days. Like, can I do that? She went onto her computer. She couldn't find out. So she got up and she went to the back, went to another room, spoke with her supervisor, someone, I guess, who knows better than she does. And then she came back after a few minutes and she said, no, you cannot extend it for 90 days. After 90 days, that's it. The phone is done. And this is a really weird thing. I don't think this policy can last very long in Indonesia. It feels like there's going to be a lot of trouble with this policy because, as I understand it, and as they explained it to me, your phone is now a one-time only device for the entire country. So I brought this physical phone into Indonesia for a holiday. After 90 days, it's done. The IMEI was registered with customs, and I can never use it in Indonesia ever again. Because I asked the woman, well, how long does this last? Like, if I come back to Indonesia next year or 2 years from now, can I use this phone? And she said, no, because your 90 days are expired. You get 90 days per phone, and that's it. And then you can never use that phone in Indonesia ever again, right? It's like, okay, that seems really, really harsh, but that's how it was explained to me. So anyway, I could not extend my IMEI by another 90 days. She says, no, you can't do that. I says, okay. But my SIM card is still good. It's still valid. And this is a dual SIM phone. I thought, well, what if because it kept saying SIM 1 disallowed. And I says, well, can I take the SIM card and move it from slot 1 to slot 2? Now will it work? And she didn't know. So she went to the back office and said, no, you can't do that. That won't work. And then I said, okay, so this phone is done, but I actually have a second phone. So I have 2 phones. So can I move my SIM card from this phone to this phone? Because the SIM card, there's nothing wrong with the SIM. It's the physical phone that has been shut off, not the SIM card. So shouldn't I be able to just move it to a different phone? So I asked her, can I move the SIM card from this phone to this phone? She didn't know. She went to the back, spoke to some people there, and came back and said, no, you can't do that. And to be honest, I kind of knew that already because I'd already tried it. Before I went to Telkomsel, I took the SIM card from this phone and I put it into this phone, and I had the same problem. I was not allowed to connect to a mobile network, and I got the same message saying SIM 1 disallowed. So I'd already tried it out myself, and I kind of knew it wouldn't work, but I wanted to hear it from them. So I asked her, like, can I move it from this phone to this phone? She said no, and I knew she was accurate because I tried it myself. So I thought about it, and there was one other alternative, and I asked her, well, can I get a new SIM card? Can I get a brand new SIM card, put it into this phone, and now I can get another 90 days? And she thought about that, went to the back room, came back, said, no, you can't do that. You can never use this phone in Indonesia ever again. It gets 90 days usage as a tourist, and then you're finished. You can't use it anymore. So basically this phone is done. And I says, okay, but I have a second phone. Can I get a new SIM card, brand new SIM card, as if I'm a brand new tourist? I just arrived in Indonesia, get a SIM card, a tourist SIM, put it in this phone, which as far as Indonesian customs is concerned, it doesn't exist because it's never been registered with customs. Can I get a brand new SIM, put it into my brand new phone? Can I get mobile access that way? She didn't know. She went to the back room, found out, came back and said, yes, you can do that. That will work. So that was the solution to my problem, apparently. And I just started the process. I says, okay, I would like to get a new SIM card. And we went through the process of registering it. It's a very complicated procedure in Indonesia. I've noticed this. When I went back to Malaysia recently, I got a new SIM card at the airport, and it took, I don't know, I say less than 5 minutes to get it. I walked up to the office. It was Digi, like the Digi company in Malaysia. There was a desk there at the airport. I walked up to them and said, I'd like a SIM card for this phone, please. And 5 minutes later, I just walked away and it was done. And it feels like it took 2 minutes. I mean, it was literally, I just handed him my phone and my passport. Like 2 minutes later, he handed it back to me. I paid for it and we were done. So 5 minutes at the most. But here in Indonesia, every time I've gotten a new SIM card, it's taken about 45 minutes to complete the process. I don't know why it's so complicated, but it is. I feel sorry for the women who work there because they have to do so much work. I said, I'd like to get a SIM card for this phone. And then I just sat back and waited, and she was on her computer just going and going and going. They had to get a special phone out of a drawer, put the SIM card in this little candy bar phone, do a bunch of things there, pull it out, go back to it. It was a very long time. She had to take my picture holding my passport. It was almost like, it was like a mugshot. So I had to take my passport, open it up to the information page, and hold it next to my face. And then she took a photograph of me with my passport. You know, it felt like I was posing for like a ransom note. You know how they make a ransom victim hold the day's newspaper to prove that the day and the date is accurate? I had to do that with my passport. She had to take my picture holding my passport, insert that into the system. It just went on for a very long time, 45 minutes, as I said. And then it was done, and I had a brand new SIM card in this phone, and now I could connect to the internet again, which I'm happy about. But the wrinkle is, now I've run out of phones, right? I've got this phone. It's registered with customs. I can never use it again. I have a new SIM card in this phone, and now the 90-day clock is ticking right now. And after 90 days, this phone will be shut down. And even though I've got two phones, I can never come back to Indonesia using these phones. That didn't make any sense to me at all. So I was speaking with the clerk, and I pointed this out to her. I said to her, okay, like, follow me here, like, follow the logic of what's going on here. And I went through that whole song and dance with her, and I said, like, what if I come back to Indonesia in 2024, next year? Can I get a SIM card and put it into one of these phones? And she said, no, you can never use those phones in Indonesia ever again. So I said, okay, so every time for the rest of my life, if I ever want to come back to Indonesia, for every trip, I have to buy a brand new smartphone. And she thought about it and said, yeah, that's what it means. So that, as far as I can tell, is the situation in Indonesia right now. Indonesia and IMEI and smartphones. That's kind of the story. Yeah, it's weird. Doesn't make any sense to me. I've seen some chatter online. People everywhere are trying to figure this whole thing out. There's this whole thing about how other people, when they talk about it online, they say you have a choice. Like when you come into Indonesia, you can register your phone with customs if you want to use your phone for a long time. But if you don't want to use it for a long time, you can just get a tourist SIM, and then you don't have to register with customs. But in my experience, that's not true, because so far I've gotten 2 SIM cards, and each time Telkomsel registers my IMEI with customs automatically. That is part of the SIM card process now. So you don't have a choice. Every time you come into Indonesia, get a SIM card, they register your phone's IMEI, and then you get 90 days to use that phone, and then it's shut off. That seems to be the situation now. Anyway, yeah, that's just the way things are. And I just wanted to tell that story because it struck me as a little bit amusing and then kind of interesting. And I'm interested to find out in the future what happens, because I will be coming back to Indonesia again. And at that time, I guess I'll find out whether I can use get another SIM card, because I did see some people online saying that the way to get around this problem is you can use your phone with Wi-Fi in the hotel. But if you want to get on a mobile network in Indonesia, you're better off not using your phone. What you should do is when you come to Indonesia, just buy a local phone, because a local phone, you don't have to do any of this. The IMEI is already registered as being in Indonesia with customs. It's already been done, and it lasts forever. There's no 90-day expiry date on a local phone. So people say, just buy the cheapest local phone you can get. Don't even worry about it. You know, use your good phone for taking pictures in the hotel on the Wi-Fi, for shooting video, all the fancy stuff. Just use that phone. Use your good phone, but just buy a cheap local phone that gets you connected to the internet, and then you can connect your good phone to your cheap phone using a Wi-Fi hotspot. And then you don't have to worry about IMEI. So that appears to be one solution. So yeah, that's where the story ends for me right now. I finally got my tourist visa extension. That is done. I have a new SIM card. I have access to the internet with my new IMEI registration. That is done. And now I can relax. Anyway, I just wanted to tell that story. Me, Indonesia, and IMEI.